What's up, bosses? Welcome to About Her Business, the podcast where we leave all the gossip at the door and get straight down to business. I'm your host, John Tay, and today we have serial entrepreneur and mental health advocate and my girl, Miss Caralyn Dreyer. Now, Miss Dreyer is the host of The Darkness, a mental health recovery podcast, and she runs a couple of blogs entitled Darkness and Recovery and Darkness to Dialogue, Living with Mental Illnesses. She uses all her platforms to educate, inspire, and promote open conversations about mental health and recovery. And she's breaking stigmas today on what she means business. So, ladies, grab those cups and those notepads and let's get down to it. Welcome, Carolyn.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And me and Carolyn just wrapped up Healing Through Chaos, where she came on there as well to talk about mental health recovery. And now she's switching things up, and we're going to get into talking about her businesses today. So, are you ready to get into today's conversation?
I'm so ready.
Let's go. So, take us back to the beginning. What happened in your life when you decided to step into mental health recovery, mental health recovery advocacy? And when did it shift from personal to professional?
Okay, so about 2 years ago is when I started sharing my story. And I was approached by a PR agent, and she was going to help me like build my brand. I didn't really know like much about building a brand at that time. And so we were going to primarily focus on me sharing the essay that I survived. And so that was going to be like the basis for like my mission and my purpose and everything. Well, to cut a long story short, because I am a trauma survivor, I'm very educated in pattern recognition when it comes to the way people behave and some of the things that they do. So I basically found out that this person didn't have my best interests in mind. And it was on a pretty big scale. Like I had to write like a whole formal email to like separate myself from this person. And what happened is I didn't have money at the time to pay her to start representing me. So the type of person I am, I'm not going to sit and wait for stuff to fall in my lap. Like if I'm waiting for another opportunity, there's always stuff that you can do in the meantime to lay the groundwork. And so, as I was kind of struggling if I was going to continue with this person or not, I realized, and this is no offense to public relations people, they are very integral in what we do. However, I determined that pretty much a lot of the things this person was going to help me do, I could do myself. So, because of that severed relationship, look, girl, I was mad. I was hot. I was hot. When I discover someone is trying to take me on a ride,
Mhm.
and even till the very last second, they're still trying to plead their case. I was so mad because I had basically I didn't pin all my hopes and dreams on this person, but I was expecting them to be able to really get me going. So I literally turned like all that anger and I started my first blog because I was like, okay, I've already had actually started the process of making myself more visible. Like I had a private profile forever. Obviously, I had to make myself public. I redid like my LinkedIn, all these things. I was like, well, I've already started and people are already expecting something to come out of this. And you're not gonna have me out here looking dumb. So I took all that anger and I started my blog and I was like, you know what? I know mental health. Mental health is my life outside of advocating for it. So let me kind of try to pivot and build upon what I've already started. And I'm going to just start advocating for mental health along with like trauma recovery too. Excuse me. And so I guess that was also the point where it turned from like a personal thing into more of like a business trajectory. So it's an interesting story. And even though this person didn't have my best interest at heart, there were some like foundational things that were important for me to know that I did pick up on. And so, yeah, that's really like how all of it started.
And I am so sorry you went through all of that, but I think that that is a very important thing for entrepreneurs out there. There are people that are looking to take advantage. And what happens is they turn your vision into their vision and what they thinking is best for you and your business. And it gets a lot really confusing. And you see a lot of entrepreneurs out there today that are literally, stepping away from those types of people to make sure that the vision and the foundation is already set before hiring on these people. Because I'm telling you, like, if you walking into the room, and I have a background in doing social media management for smaller businesses, and one of the things that I will always tell them is, what's your vision? Because I want to align with your vision. And they were like, well, I don't know yet. I don't know. And so that's literally where I would have to break off from those entrepreneurs, because I don't want to create the vision for your business for you. I want you to already have your business, and then I align with it. So that's a great point to make, especially when you're out here, you're hiring these public relations type of professionals, because if you don't come in with your vision and how you prefer to see it, then you can easily get manipulated into becoming something that they envision you to be. So, Caralyn, thank you for sharing your story with us, because I don't have I think entrepreneurs try to overlook that aspect of what business look like, and working with, professionals that literally just want to make money and completely get rid of who you are as a person. And that's not really why we start entrepreneurship, y'all.
Yeah. And the sad part about it is that this person was marketing themselves as wanting to help me share my story, but I I'm going to say this in like a non-bragging way, but I'm a good writer. I have a very, very strong work ethic. I can pick up on things quickly. And I think that those traits were detected by this person. So they disguised it as wanting to help me tell my story. But I would bet $1 trillion that that probably would have never happened. And rebranding can go horribly wonderful, but it can also go horribly wrong. And I don't ever really want to have to rebrand myself. And so I could kind of see that if I'm going to do this, especially from a business aspect, it's like first impressions are everything. They're everything. If you're out here looking like a mess and like your message is all over the place, you have all these weird things going on, it's like musicians who are like one hit wonders. You got that one shot to really have people see who you are. And if you're not aligned with the right people, it's terrible. I know that this person has wreaked havoc on other people's brands, and it makes me sick. I don't like it. And I'm not, like a catty, shady person. I would not call this person out in public because at the end of the day, these people wake up every morning and choose to be dirty and shady, just like you and I wake up in the morning and choose to be good people. I don't need to call out your name. If you watch this video and the shoe fits, well, you better put that shoe on. Because, I'm not going to let you slide away though either.
Exactly. And that's a great point to make, because a lot of people will sit and hide behind, this, image. And the whole time they're literally getting over on people. And, it's a lot of consulting agencies out there that literally, they see one success story and literally think that's going to be everybody else's success story. So they literally take whatever formula it was to make that business successful and try to apply it to all businesses. But when you're literally out here creating purpose-driven brands, and it literally becomes one of those things of where you have to align with that person's vision and that person's mind versus what you just saw in another agency, because that other brand, it literally may have fit that format, but at the same time, not every format is for everybody. So that sounds a lot like they didn't do the individualized approach that I love so much, which is literally sitting down, getting to know a person, understanding where they're coming from, and then branding them in that way. So I've seen that a lot lately, especially with all these brand managers and consultants and things like that. They literally think that one format fits for everybody, and that's just not the case, y'all.
Well, and to circle back, this person actually did sit and have like a discovery call and all of that with me. So this person, yeah, but The problem I had is they were trying to pick and choose parts of my story to brand. Like, first of all, this is not like a commodity situation. Like, I'm trying to tell my story to help people. If money and business comes along with that, that's amazing. But I'm not, if I can't just stick to one part because then I basically have to act like I wasn't born or that I was like raised by wolves. Like, I have to have all these pieces in here for it to make sense. And that was like the first red flag was kind of like, wait a second, like, why am I about to break my piggy bank for someone to tell me how to tell my story and actually try to like shrink me a little bit because that's what was going to work for their business plan.
Exactly. And that's another thing that a lot of people, especially brand people, they real deal, try to pick, well, nitpick, I like to say, certain parts that they think would go viral or they
Yes.
would think, most people would be most interested in. And they're literally following trends. And a person that likes to follow trends is quite dangerous because you can easily get blinded into becoming somebody that you're just completely not and literally being put in
Yeah.
a box almost of having to stay there. And you see a lot of that with celebrities today. If they start off as like an artist or a singer or something like that and eventually want to switch over to acting or becoming a writer, it becomes very difficult for them because they've literally been put in a box for so long, and they can't really get out of that box and be themselves. So
Right.
that's another great point to bring up, Carolyn, that a lot of entrepreneurs don't really like to highlight and talk about, because that is very important, especially when you're starting off. You need to understand that not everybody's going to be for you, and you have to literally know how to pick people that are for you and align with you and your brand and your mission, because and it starts with setting up that vision.
Yeah.
And eventually you'll attract the right people, and you have to stand firm,
Yeah.
really stand firm
Yeah.
when it comes down to these professionals, because they would easily go, well, such and such is like this, or it looks like that, when in reality, I'm not such and such, I'm so and so. So
Yeah.
it's like one of those things where you do, if you don't have your mission and your purpose and your vision, whatever you want to call it, set up from the start, you can easily be manipulated into becoming the next trending topic, y'all. And that,
Yeah.
and we all know 15 minutes of fame doesn't equate to a lifetime of investment. So if you're a person out here that's literally looking for that lifetime investment, definitely come in with your vision, definitely stand firm. And if people just don't align with it, do like Carolyn said, walk
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, you have a background, you are highly educated. You have a master's degree in forensic psychology and a bachelor's in criminal justice. How have these two disciplines shaped the way you approach your brand and the conversations you lead?
Oh my gosh. A big one, I think, with my academic background, a few things that have always stuck with me from that is the importance of like credibility. Obviously, in an academic setting, they pound into your brain, the importance of like credibility when you're citing sources or whatever the case. So I definitely carry that through my content in terms of like, I'm not going to take information off of Wikipedia, for example, and be like, yeah, guys, this is, go here. This is the only answer in the world. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, stick with one source and take that as the final word. You got to keep looking and digging. So I think the critical thinking skills and all that stuff that's involved with academics is extremely helpful in sharing my message and choosing like the type of content. And I think too, I'm a big researcher, so that is very beneficial for all aspects. It helps me come up with topics. It helps me decide maybe the right way to phrase something with like a certain sensitivity or whatever, especially with mental health topics. And just having like that air about you of like integrity and like a truth teller and like a truth seeker, like just having that aura about you of just always wanting to learn and always wanting to combat like the misinformation out there and just standing from like an authentic foundation. So I just think Honestly, when I'm writing a blog, it's like writing an essay for school in a lot of ways. You have your introduction, you have the body, you have the conclusion. Everything has to fit together. You need to support your ideas. So I'm glad for that educational background, not just for like the knowledge, but for like the skills and the stuff that you take away from it.
I'll even give an example. AI is one of the tools that a lot of people like to use, especially when it comes to mental health. And you can use any one of the platforms and they'll give you all these sources. And I'm here to tell you, read them. Go to them, read and see if they align with you. And I'm just grateful for, my academics as well and, working a previous job, because without that previous job, I wouldn't have as much knowledge into mental health as I do right now. And, you know, it took literally sitting there learning, understanding from the people that was ranked higher than me, who had, the masters and the doctorate degrees, and understanding where they was getting their resources from. And a lot of people, if you're not using AI, you like to go to Wikipedia because you think that that's a quick format, but anybody can go in and edit that, y'all. And you need to be mindful of stuff like that. And we've seen several people, especially on the law side, use AI to, do case reviews and cite cases. And sure enough, those cases didn't even exist. So I'm here to tell you that if you're a person that likes to plug stuff into AI when it comes to mental health, make sure you're checking those resources, because a lot of times it's opinion based and it's not really evidence based. And that's really what you're looking for when you're out here and you're talking to people. And, if you're on the academic side, you know better when you write those papers, because
Absolutely.
your instructors are going to literally tell you that's not a good source, that's not a good site, and it's very opinion based. And we're looking for that evidence based approach to everything that we do, because that literally, as Caralyn said, it literally sets up your credibility. So don't be a person that's out here using AI to do your work, and definitely don't be a person out here that's letting AI tell you what mental health really is, because I'm telling you, it's going to send you down a rabbit hole.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, I use AI to organize outlines for my blogs and things of that nature. And I think when you know how to use AI the proper way, it is extremely helpful for like workflow and content creation and all that stuff. But like you said, you have to make sure, because it's still a computer and it's being trained by other people, which the people training the computers can commit errors. And they tell you when you open like ChatGPT, like this information might not be accurate or whatever it says. You have to double check things. And, is the website broken, especially for a blog? If you continue to have like stuff hyperlinked that leads to like something that doesn't make sense, like people are going to not want to come back anymore. They're going to be like, well, this is a headache. And so I think when you have that academic background, it also allows you to make sure that the information is relevant. Because like you said, a lot of these scientific studies, if you really read them, let's say they say like 80% of the participants agree with this statement. Okay, well, how big was the sample size? Was it 10 people? 80% of 10 people is not the same as 80% of like 1,000 people. So when you look at it from that standpoint, and look, not everybody has a thought process like that, but just from a very basic understanding, if it's not something that you can generalize to everyone or to at least the topic you're speaking about, that can, I don't want to say it ruins your credibility, but people might kind of question, like, do they really know what they're talking about? You know what I'm saying? So if you're not an academic person, the thing I could probably tell you is just research stuff. If you find 10 other, we'll say even 3 or 4 other sources that corroborate something, chances are you're pretty safe, but add a disclaimer. If you're writing blogs, that's why I add disclaimers in there, because I don't want somebody going away being like, oh my gosh, that Caralyn Dreyer just says like X, Y, and Z, and that's totally not even accurate. But if I have a disclaimer that says, well, these are my perspectives or my beliefs, that is different than this is a fact.
Absolutely. And that was well said, because a lot of colleges and universities are starting to incorporate AI, and it's for
Yep.
that reason to help you outline and set up your papers and things like that. But they're literally telling you in the fine print, I like to call it, do not let it write your paper. You go out, find your own resources. You go out and then, study it for yourself, because I agree with that population size. A size of 10 is different from a size of 30,000. And a 1 year study is different from a 3 year study. So
Absolutely.
when you really looking for that, resource, just remember why you're writing the paper.
Yeah.
And going great places to go, especially in the mental health field, is APA, the American Psychological
Yes.
Association, and then ACA, the American Counseling Association, and go through their journals, because
Yes.
those are journal entries that literally have been put to the test. And I want to let everybody in on, how it works in these fields. It's not, okay, this person did a study in 2025, so in 2026 everybody's going to be practicing it. No, it takes literally years of making sure that this research is valuable to society before they even put it out. So if everybody want to know, sometimes a lot of these case studies are anywhere from 6 to 8 years post research, just because it has been tested in the field and in the system and been proven as valid work. So if you need valid resources when it comes to mental health, go to those two organizations, because they do due diligence in what they put out into society. And they make sure that it's evidence-based, meaning it can be proven, not just in that case study, but it can actually be proven in multiple cases. So I'm telling you, when it comes to mental health, there's a lot of people out here right now that's leaning into mental health and talking about mental health. And a lot of them are just literally coming from opinion based and not evidence based, because they literally just going to whatever the populist blog is at the time and going, well, everybody goes here. But if you actually go to someone like Caralyn's blog, or if you follow Take Corner blogs, a lot of that information is coming from a lot of those resources. And with the AI thing, when I, do my content creation nowadays, I literally take those resources from those particular places, those journal entries, and I literally base my content off of what that proven case study says. And that's literally how I work, y'all. I'm not literally coming in saying, okay, well, this is my opinion and this is what I view it as. I'm literally taking evidence-based, proven stuff and putting it into AI, and I'm letting AI work with that. I'm not letting AI give me the resources. So if you're thinking about doing anything in mental health, especially if you're thinking about starting a blog, or if you're thinking about starting a podcast on it, definitely do it that way. Go and find your resources. And if you need AI to help you set it up, well, if it's a paper or a business, then plug in those resources that you have found to be evidence-based. And I promise you, you'll build your credibility off of that, because, I'm thankful because I'm still a student, but I have other professionals that come in and tell me you're on the right track, you're speaking it correctly. And so that's literally where I've gained my credibility, even from people that are already licensed, y'all.
Yeah, and that's the scariest part. I think that was the most daunting part at the beginning, was like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to be waiting for people to call me out, be like, that's not right, that's not right. But you have to, like you said, do your due diligence. Even with my little 1 minute videos, I'm making sure I'm not saying something that's not true. And if it is my opinion, this is my opinion because X, Y, and Z. You can't, anybody can just be like, oh, this is what I think. This is what I believe. Well, that's great. But why do you believe that? Where did you get your information that led you, to that conclusion?
Absolutely. And I follow a lot of doctors and licensed therapists, and, you know, I'm grateful that I've been able to collaborate and have conversations with these people, because, a lot of times when you're a student, you're out here and you're going, hey, am I learning what's correct and what's, right? Especially because right now in mental health, you have a lot of words that a lot of people that used to use are now being changed. So that's another detection on if they're still using, like, for example, the word abuse.
Right.
That is a person that's not, I won't say not informed, but they just haven't literally understood that the language has changed. So if they're
Right.
literally out here using previous used language, then that's a very good indicator that they have not done their research, y'all.
Words matter so much.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about what was the original vision behind creating Darkness and Recovery and Darkness to Dialogue. How did you know that there was an audience for this type of content?
Well, since I wanted to add the lived experience aspect, I knew there was a market for that because I had not yet had my voice out there. So I'm like, there's a need for Caralyn Dreyer out here. But on a serious note, I mean, mental health I don't know, it's like an everyday thing. It doesn't go away. It's always going to be here. So I knew from that front I would be okay. But again, I did my research. Like I researched other mental health blogs that were out there to kind of see what other people were doing and also to like come up with the name. But Darkness to Dialogue was my first blog. And the purpose of that blog was basically like education. Like I wanted to talk about mental health related topics that either maybe people weren't familiar with or ones that they were. I know I did like different themes, like I did Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. So I talked about stuff like that. I did men's mental health. So it was mostly just if you want kind of like a basic understanding of mental health, mental illness specifically, and the concepts and stuff. That's what that blog was for. I did not often share like personal reflections as much with that blog because at that particular time, I mean, that was almost 2 years ago now. I was in such a different space. I was a little scared to make it too personal because I was also like, I'm not quite sure people want to read a diary about why I'm pissed off about, whatever setback I'm having. So I wanted to be careful to not make it like too personal because I was like, people need to get to know me first and probably figure out why would we want to learn about mental health from this person. And if I start out a little too personal, I think the educational aspect might have been lost. So so I'm like, I'll toss in personal examples here and there. But then when I evolved to Darkness and Recovery, that one is now more specific to personal things that I've recovered from. I'm in recovery from an eating disorder. I in recovery from trauma. I had alcohol dependence at one time. So the darkness and recovery aspect is more so these are concepts that I've kind of talked about already, but here's how they apply to recovering from maybe more specific things.
Absolutely. And, there's a lot of people out there starting blogs specifically towards mental health. And that's another thing that you have to be careful with, which is that self-disclosure of your own personal journey. Because if you're a person that wants to advocate or if you're a person that wants to educate others on mental health, you have to make a tough decision. And it's okay to use, like you said, use examples and you be used as the example. I'm always using myself as the example when I'm explaining things, but at the same time you can lose your credibility in the process if you use yourself too much. And a lot of people start to think, for example, that you're biased.
Right.
That can easily turn people away, turn people off to you. But if you literally come in from that aspect, like you said, of I'm here to educate, I'm here to bring awareness to a lot of these topics. And I'm a person that literally just have pretty much every awareness for mental health plugged into my head. I've done a disability awareness month type of segment that's in March. I just recently wrapped up Men's Mental Health Month. Well, Men's Mental Health Month is this month. I did a mental health awareness segment, and I'm going to continue to do segments throughout the year on my blog. But again, it's coming from, especially like from my disability awareness and my mental health awareness. I particularly wanted to focus on those definitions that we like to hear in mental health and getting people to really understand the true meaning behind each one of those definitions. And once again, most of the definitions came from ACA or APA organizations, and that's literally where all professionals go to, whether if you're a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Those are your main areas as well as SAMHSA and people like that as well. When you're talking about definitions and understanding the details of what these different meanings mean, because we have a lot of abbreviations in the field and a lot of people don't understand what those abbreviations mean. A lot of people don't understand what stigma is. A lot of people don't understand the difference between mental health and mental illness, and there's a huge difference there, y'all. And so that's what I literally wanted to focus on, literally helping people understand that there are definitions for these different terms that they use, such as you're not alone. When people say mental health matters, there are definitions of what they really mean in the field. And that's literally what I try to highlight on those particular awareness months, is making sure people understand the true definition behind all these meanings.
And I like how you said you kind of do have to choose a little bit between personalizing and like advocacy. And I think that's the distinction, is that I had to ask myself, is this blog for me? Do I just want a space where I could just vent daily things? Or is this blog going to be for someone else? And that's where the business side kind of pops on a little bit, because then it's like, okay, I can talk about personal things, but let's translate it to like a general audience, or a more specific audience, but let's like turn the inward stuff outward. And I think that's where it turns from more personal to business for me.
Absolutely. And I could stay on this topic all day, because when you are talking about starting a business, like how I've turned my Take on a Blogs page into a business. And one of the things I wanted to do was work with other professionals. And so I knew, coming from that personal aspect, I could easily be seen as, oh, you need to be my client versus my collaborator. And so you have to think about stuff like that. Like, if you want to collaborate with other professionals in the field, you have to build yourself into a space of where you're showing that you're educated, and not necessarily that person that's still needing that help, or that person that's still stuck in that time, because that could easily, and they're literally trained to see it that way. So it's not judgment or anything like that. They're just literally trained to see it. And they'll say, hey, I like your stuff, but at the same time, I can't align with that, because it seems like you're stuck in between your personal life and your business life. And I'm telling you, you can easily ruin your reputation in the field if you're out here just jumping on anybody's collaboration and they're still coming from that personal aspect versus have switched over to that business mind. So that's literally how I'm able to collaborate with other professionals in the field, and still be in school getting my license, because I literally knew how to shift it from it being about me to it being about helping others. And that's literally what the mission is and what it's about, y'all.
Absolutely. And I think that's, from what I've observed over the past couple of years, the more self-absorbed and self-important some of these content creators are, the more I'm constantly they have to rebrand themselves, because they're all about themselves and they're not really for other people. So that's what I have noticed specifically, is that they're constantly, this is a new trend, and now 6 months later we got to jump on this one. But it's like, hey, how about you just be yourself? How about that?
Exactly. And we know starting a blog and a podcast can be overwhelming for anybody, but what were the first strategic steps in building your platforms, and what would you do differently if you had a chance?
Research was always the first step. So, and also I would say, like, for example, for my podcast, I formulated that just based off of like maybe common sense. So to me, I don't think that generally a lot of people have time to listen to a podcast episode, at least for what I'm doing or my audience. I didn't feel that it'd be beneficial for me to do like an hour-long podcast episode. I want it to be more digestible and quick. So I'm like, oh, people, they probably got like 10 to 15 minutes. So I kind of use like what I have observed to build my podcast. With my blog, it was a little more challenging because I had to learn how to read like coding and learn about like index tags and like robot tags and like all this weird stuff that I would have normally been overwhelmed. But because that PR person had like pissed me off so much, and I don't like to ask for help always either. I would much rather try to figure it out first. And so that's what I did. In hindsight, would I have asked for advice? Possibly. But I don't know that I would have, because at the same token, I was like, well, okay, I could very easily pay someone to do my blog for me. But then what happens when there's like an outage or something and they're asleep and I need to fix it? Then I have to wait on somebody else. So I personally would rather learn things from the ground up. And that way, by the time I get to a level where I maybe want to or need to delegate things, if that person quits, no one's leaving me high and dry. Oh, you want to quit? Okay, see you later. I'll go fix whatever I got to fix. I like to be as self-sufficient as possible, which is a double-edged sword. It's a very good thing in business, I think, to be self-sufficient. You learn things, you learn a variety of things, but the double-edged sword, you get burned out, you get too proud to ask for help, that type of thing. So research, it was just a really big one. YouTube videos. I'm horrible with reading like a list of instructions. I have to like watch somebody do it on the computer. So just research and observation, to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't have like any magic formula or anything like that. I just had to tell myself, you can do this, because I'm not a technologically savvy person. But I also do shortchange myself when it comes to my ability to learn new things. So I don't think I would have done anything differently, to be honest with you. I don't think that I would have. I would do all the mistakes over again because it taught me different methods of doing things. And I'm not saying I wouldn't change anything because I think I'm so perfect. It's mostly because I know I'm not perfect. And I appreciate that imperfection of the process because it helped me shift and it helped me rebuild my confidence when I needed to. So, yeah, I don't think I would change anything.
I went through a situation, and before I got on the internet and went, this is what it was and what I went through. I did a whole lot of research, a whole lot of research.
Yes.
And that's how I was able to come to that term reactive abuse, which I had absolutely no idea it existed. So, but
Yeah.
you have to do your research. And especially when we're talking mental health, you have to do your research because, again, you got a lot of people out there that's just putting out opinion-based stuff. And a lot of it, sometimes literally come from their own personal experience, which, that's easy to relate to in a lot of cases. But at the same time, when it comes down to your case, that may not very well be what it is. So you definitely have to do your research. And again, go back to those places that I named earlier if you don't know where to start, and that'll help you along the way.
And also, I always choose what's best for me. So like when I was researching what platform to do my blog on, for example, WordPress is super, super popular. But for somebody who wants to be self-sufficient and not, well, and also I'm broke. So if you need hints on how to do business stuff with not a lot of money, I'm your girl. Because I pay maybe out of pocket like $20 a month, if that, to do everything that I'm doing. But to go back to what I was saying is that WordPress might be popular to everybody else, but for me, I couldn't create a blog easily on that. So I chose Blogger. Do other people think Blogger sucks? Maybe they do. I don't know. But for me, that's what works. And for my podcast, I was going to do Buzzsprout, but I wasn't trying to pay for a membership, and the functionality of it wasn't easy for me. So I had been on a podcast where the young lady used Podbean, and I always remember that. And so a year later, when I'm starting my podcast, I was like, oh, that's right. There's Podbean. And I checked it out and it was easy for me to understand. So while that might not be what a brand strategist would recommend, that's what I recommend for me. That's why I'm a one-woman show. But I think the important message is do what's best for you. Yeah, there's other platforms that statistically speaking might make you more successful. But again, your definition of success versus someone else's might be different, but always stay true to yourself. Even now, if I were to take someone on and they're like, yeah, girl, you got to get rid of Podbean, we're getting rid of Blogger, I'm not doing it. It works for me. I've had success. I've had proven success. I'm not changing it. And like you said earlier, stand firm. If that's something that you want to do and you don't want to change it, don't change it. We don't need to reinvent the wheel always.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, finding your voice in, any space can be hard. So let's talk about that for a second. How did you find your voice in such a vulnerable space while still position yourself as a credible and trusted authority?
You know what? I think just letting people see everything. A lot of times, of course, when I'm making these videos, you might think like, gosh, this girl drank a cup full of sunshine. When meanwhile, no, the heck I didn't. I'm just turning on a show. But then I've had other times where I've done live streams and complete ugly face cry to the whole world. And that's okay too. I think it's important that everybody sees everything. I was actually just saw a post today about how there's too many people out here just showing so much curated, perfect things. Like, really, does somebody have a camera set up right next to their bed and it's morning, good morning, everyone? Like, is
Right.
anybody really waking up like that? No. Likely, they either had their husband or their kid or themselves put the camera there. They got back into bed, ruffled their hair up a little bit, and make it seem like they just woke up. Like, I'm not knocking if that's somebody's strategy. I personally strive to show the messy stuff too. Now, again, there's a fine line because in the business world, I don't necessarily want someone to think like, oh my gosh, this girl's a hot mess. And I did worry about that. When I decided to talk about my own struggles with mental health, I was like, nobody is ever going to want to do anything with me after this. But it's the complete opposite. But it's probably because I found a balance between showing the messier parts, but then also making sure that on the business side of things, unfortunately, we do have to look put together. We do. I'm probably not going to sell a bunch of journals. If I got a cigarette hanging out my mouth, I got rollers in my hair, and I'm looking crazy. Sadly, we can't always present ourselves that way in the business side of things. We can't. It sucks. I don't know if I should say it's unfair because I do think there's a time and a place for everything, but it's just you got to find that balance again between the personal and the business. So I think you also have to be okay with understanding that some people just aren't going to get it. They might not like you. You might rub them the wrong way. And I think it makes it easier then to show up in those vulnerable spaces because you've already decided I'm not going to be for the masses and I'm okay with that.
I follow a few of those types of content creators are creating anesthetics for people.
Yeah.
And I was watching one, and sure enough, she rolled right on up out of bed, still got her pajamas on, a bonnet on, and everything. And I'm like, girl, who turned on the camera? Like, at some point, and then, your husband gone to work, and you could clearly see that your husband not in the bed. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe he's behind the camera, or you had to get up and turn the camera on, and then they surely fast forward to them in the bathroom. You had to place it in the bathroom. Then you got them sitting out, got the camera sitting outside. You had to place it outside. So it's really like you're creating this movie in certain aspects,
Right.
and it can easily come across as you being fake, because everybody knows that's just not how life works unless you just a person that got cameras everywhere around your house and you just turn it on whenever you get ready.
Right.
And there's some people out there that's like that. They got cameras everywhere in their house and you just turn it on. But in reality, that's not everybody's life. So if you're a person out here that literally want to be your authentic self and reach people that are authentic like you and show them literally what life is truly about, you have to show that, hey, I may be laying in bed, but here I am literally still laying in bed, and you might be recording on your phone.
Right.
A nice camera setup with HD on it and going, yeah, this is how I woke up this morning, and you got lipstick on already, and your eyebrows did, and everybody know that
Right.
ain't how people wake up. I'm just gonna be real. This is
Right.
how people wake up. So if you're talking about being in a true vulnerable space and reaching people who are looking for a safe space, you have to pretty much envision the safe space that you would want. Would you want a person, pretty much blinding you to the ugly side of life, or would you want a person that's giving you an anesthetic? And
Yeah.
that's literally how I look at it. Sometimes I like the anesthetics because I like to see all the little different, stuff that they use because, we can talk skincare, makeup, and all that stuff like that.
Right.
But at the same time, like you said, it's a time and place for everything.
And I think too, read the room. Because look, I watch those videos. I love them. Like I like the ASMR videos. I like to watch what people do every day, even if it is curated. And so read the room. Like if you are in that space where that's what your followers like to watch, by all means, you should create that. And that speaks to, are you really paying attention to the followers or the number of followers? I pay attention to my followers. I don't pay it. Yes, I would love to have a big number because it's an aesthetic that makes it look like you're really important and people want to know what you have to say. However, if I don't know who my followers are beyond the number of them, I'm probably going to not be creating content that's even going to be helpful. So if, for example, most of my followers did want videos like that, let's say I made one time and I got like 1,000 views, I probably would just keep making videos like that. So I don't want people to think we're like bashing them for like what they're doing, but a time and a place for trauma survival, that's not really, well, first of all, a lot of trauma survivors, I don't know if they have the energy to even curate content in that type of manner. And it would be more of like, hey, I might shoot a video with like a pile of laundry about to dump over my head or something like that. You know what I mean? So read the room, really know who your followers and your audience is beyond, just a profile picture and a metrics to like make your follower numbers grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if you're a person, once again, chasing trends, you may very well start attracting the people that are not your audience.
Yeah.
And you end up starting putting yourself in a box, and you have to start appeasing to that number of new followers that you drawing in. And sure enough, if you created something that's anesthetic, and we're not bashing those content creators that create anesthetics, but if you're just creating anesthetics for people, you can easily attract the wrong crowd, and next thing you know, you literally have to continue on with that same format, and that literally wasn't the reason why you started what you started.
Right.
So definitely read the room, read what you're attracting, because I've seen a lot of content creators who have literally had to be put themselves in a box because, oh, it brings in this amount of followers and this amount of views if I do this or if I do that. But in reality, that's not who you truly are. And so now you're literally having to become an actor, with no acting background, or you're having to become this person that you just don't want to be. And, that can get draining real, real, real quick for your own mental health. So definitely, remember, as an entrepreneur, the first thing you have to do is know how to protect your own mental health. No, and that starts by literally knowing who you are, what you want to represent. And I'm telling you, because social media is worse than literally the world.
It is. It, girl, it
You literally
is.
are exposed to the world, and so don't let nobody end up making you into somebody that you just don't want to be. Now, speaking of podcasting, let's talk about podcasting, because a lot of people think that it's about just turning on a camera and just going at it. So let's talk about, what does it look like to produce an episode from both a creative and a business standpoint?
Well, let's start with the business standpoint. So, from the business standpoint, obviously, you have search engine optimization and keywords and things like that. So, from the business side, and me wanting to have visibility for my podcast, I at the beginning was like, I'm never going to use SEO. I'm not going to look it up. I don't care. I got so sick of this seeing that at the beginning because I honestly didn't even know what the heck it was. And when I looked up like what SEO was, I was like, seriously, it's basically the types of words you use. I thought it was like some big, like complicated thing because of the name of it, search engine optimization. I'm like, do I need like a degree for that? But you don't. It's really easy. But on the business side of things, you have to put a little bit of effort into making sure that like the show notes or the description or even the title, even if you're using a script, you want to make sure that you are using certain keywords and phrases for visibility. And then I think also on the business side of things, again, because I'm not a licensed mental health professional, I go through painstaking efforts to make sure people know that because I never want people to be under the impression that I'm like misrepresenting the field or myself by trying to act like I'm a licensed professional. I'm not. I want people to listen to my suggestions, but I want them to do it under the guise of this is based on my personal experience. It's a personal reflection. It is based on research. However, there's a reason why you become licensed for some of these professions. There is a reason for that. It's more than just sitting and listening to someone and offering them feedback or prescribing them this type of treatment. So from the business side of things, I try very hard to make sure that I'm operating ethically and with integrity when it comes to the information that I'm providing and the way in which I provide it. Now, on the creative side of things, I don't think I will ever run out of ideas for any of the platforms that I'm on. And that's just because I have a creative mind. This is not to say, again, this is not from a place of superiority, but I'm learning that I am very, very creative. I'm very creative. Like I can come up with ideas. So I like the creative side of it in terms of, again, working for myself. I get to choose what I want to talk about, but I do add the business side of things. And I do scroll through TikTok or Instagram just to kind of see what are people talking about, what videos of mine are resonating the most with people. And then I might formulate an episode based off of whatever information I get off of that. So I think the other thing is like the metrics and the statistics that go along, they're helpful. I hate statistics, but unfortunately I had to take statistics. I took it at the doctoral level. I didn't get to complete my doctorate. I only did 2 years. But I will say the stuff I learned in statistics did come in handy for me reading the metrics, like for my blog or my podcast in terms of who's listening. On Spotify, all my listeners are men. I was actually shocked by this because when I first started doing mental health advocacy, I wanted to focus on everyone. I did not want to put myself in a box and just focus on just women or just minority women. I wanted to see if I could maybe get guys to read my content because it's for mental health. Everybody needs to learn about it. So had I not ever looked at the metrics on Spotify, I might always be creating episodes where only women might be more drawn to it because maybe the type of topic or how I'm talking about things. So yeah, it's more than just recording an episode and putting it out there. Now, you can take that route and just willy-nilly record whatever you want and publish it. And I'm not knocking that either. But if you are focused on a mission and a purpose, there's a little more stuff involved. But you want to know how I do my podcast episodes? From this guy right here. I use my little voice recorder. Look, girl, I'm so mad. So over the past 6, 7 months, I've been trying all these different like audio editor apps, these AI microphone apps, right? So it's a little bit of a financial crunch right now. So I didn't want to pay for the membership. So I'm like, well, great. What am I going to do now? So I was like, well, let's just try this little voice recorder on here. And I've used it before for like grocery lists or whatever. So I'm like, okay, let's try to do a podcast episode. So I did it. I enhanced the audio. And girl, let me tell you, that was the best audio I've ever heard in my freaking life. And it was all just on here. I do everything on my phone. I publish it everything on my phone. So that's just to say, if you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of money, doesn't have a lot of resources, don't let that stop you. Please don't let that stop you. Where would I be if I let finances get in my way? I would be an unhappy, stuck person. You can, I'm telling you, look for me on social media. If you want some tips on how to poor girl content creation, I'm your girl. I can tell you there's so many things that you can do. Podbean, because my episodes are so short, you're allotted, I think like it's like 3 to 4 hours of like free uploading. Girl, I'm set. My episodes at best are 20 minutes long. I'm good to go. I can publish a ton of episodes on there before I even have to begin thinking of paying for a membership. So there's so many little ins and outs out there that you can't, there's nothing that should stop you. There's nothing that should stop you if that's what you really want to do.
Absolutely. And, you know, I love the fact that you brought up, the professional aspect of the business, because when it comes down to not being licensed, there's a lot of controversy around that right now. And one of the things that I made sure to put in my bio with Take Corner Blogs was, this is not a substitute like for Google search, things like that. This is not a therapist. This is just, a blog. And so when you're not licensed, you have to differentiate yourself from the actual licensed professionals, because a lot of people start, and sure enough, people were emailing me like, hey, I love your services. When can I set up an appointment? And I had to tell them, I'm not a licensed professional. This is just a blog. If you need a licensed professional, then you should reach out to someone that's in your area, or, I can help you try to find somebody. But as far as me being able to give you that mental health service, I cannot, because I'm not licensed. And even when it comes down to like my, podcast with Christy, because I have my little AI girls and I run them weekly. And, Carmen, my mental health therapist, for my Mental Health Monday segments, my mental health tips, I try to make it a generalized opinion, not a clinical opinion. And if it is a clinical opinion that needs to be given on that particular topic, I always make sure that Carmen says seek out a licensed professional.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of like my disclaimer when it comes down to making sure that people understand, hey, I'm not a licensed professional. I'm just a person that loves to do research. And I am a person that is working towards, becoming certified and things like that. But I real deal, if you need that clinical advice, always reach out to a licensed professional versus looking to a blog to tell you. And we could talk about it, a lot of podcasts out there that are doing that right now, and not one person in the room is licensed. They're just giving their opinion on personal stuff. And, a lot of people are starting to wake up and realize that it's just opinion based. It's not clinically based. And so if you do need that help, understand that you're looking for that licensed professional. You're not looking for just a person that's, giving an opinion, even if it is research based, because we both do our due diligence when it comes down to research. But if you ever write one of us, we're going to literally send you back to the licensed professional, because that's literally what they do. We're just literally raising the awareness around it and point you in their direction.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason people have to go through so much schooling and steps to become licensed. I have people reach out to me because of my academic background. They assume I'm also licensed. I'm like, sorry, I'm just a regular person. Like I'm a listening ear. But I make that very clear. And that's where, again, what is your purpose? If your purpose is money, 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 me, are you going to be more likely to maybe not be honest with somebody and allow them to pay you? I know people like that. I know people like that. If you're someone who woke up 2 weeks ago and said, I want to do this because I need to make money, I am not knocking that at all. And in fact, you can do it. There's tons of like coaches and PR people out there that can help you with that. But for me personally, that was not my primary focus. And because it's not my primary focus, I need to also be taking other steps to make sure, that everything is staying together and it's ethical and all of that stuff.
Absolutely. And we've been talking about mental health content for pretty much the entire episode. And we both know that talking mental health, it could be impactful, but at the same time, it is still a very sensitive topic for everybody out there. So let's talk about, how do you balance being authentic with boundaries while still building a sustainable brand?
Gosh, that's a hard one because everything kind of bleeds together because I do struggle with my mental health on a daily basis. Everything bleeds together. I think something I've really been working on in the past, like maybe like 6 months, is lowering my sense of urgency. I actually had somebody, I did a Zoom call with them, and they were like, you know what? When I first started following you, I thought you were a bot because you responded to my comments so quickly. I was like, there's no way this is a person. And furthermore, I don't sleep a lot either. So I might be online at all hours of the day. But I had to tell, when she said that, it was actually like a big red flag to me. Like, damn, I think I'm being a little too efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Who's telling me I have to reply to this comment 5 seconds after it's posted? Nobody. I'm telling myself that. So I think I've had to dial back on, I don't have to respond to this message right away, or I don't feel like doing my podcast episode recording today. I'll save it for 2 days later. I just have to set more personal boundaries. As far as like professionally speaking, I think I'm just learning to say no and being okay with not having to give an explanation beyond a general courtesy. I've had a couple of times where I thought I was going to work with people, and when I got into it, my gut was like, no, no, no. My foresight was like, yeah, I already see where this is headed. And now, do I owe that person the in-depth analysis of why I've changed my mind? And would they like to hear it? Probably not. So I'm going to just tell you this isn't the right fit. I wish you well, and end of story. But a lot of people take offense to that. And again, I would say that's a personal problem. I don't want to sound rude, but that's a personal problem. If you're taking offense to me being professional, they did ask why, and I just wouldn't give it to them because because then it's going beyond the point of professionalism, because it was more of like a I see you, people to people type of situation where you really don't want to know why I'm severing these ties. So I think just being comfortable with saying no, letting that be the final explanation. And again, just standing what I believe and what I want.
Absolutely. And, Carolyn, I think everybody struggles with mental health, because mental health is literally something that we wake up to every single day. It's one of those things where you wake up and you have to check in with yourself, how you feeling. Yeah. And again, that is different from a mental illness. So just because, you're waking up every day and you're checking in with your mental health does not equate to you having a mental illness. Yeah. A mental illness is a whole totally different aspect of mental health. So again, understanding those definitions and those differences, it could definitely change your life, because I'm here to tell you, like, everybody has, those moments where mental health is a concern, rather than, saying, oh, this is going to stop my life and I can't function. And then that's when you start getting into, that mental illness type of aspect. If it's putting you down and you can't just function, you're leaning over towards that side, versus, oh, I'm waking up today and I don't feel too good and I got an attitude, but tomorrow is, I'm back to myself, and you're still able to go to work while you're sick and do things and stuff like that. So definitely, when it comes down to mental health, I think everybody still has those days. And again, healing is not linear, and you do get triggers, and you do have those moments where you have to slow down. And I'm just like you, learn to become comfortable with saying no and not offer, a deep explanation, because I have always had a dislike towards people that, have to get closure. We got to have a conversation. We got to talk about it. No, sometimes it's just literally no. People are now really starting to become firm and setting that boundary at no, and leaving it. And honestly and truly, don't nobody owe you an explanation. And that's not to be rude. That's just to be real. Especially if you're an adult, that people don't owe you an explanation. I think a lot of people need to understand the difference between mental health and mental illness, because we all struggle with it at some point in time.
Absolutely.
Now, At what point did you begin to think about monetizing your work, and what revenue streams have made the most sense for your niche?
You know what? I have not yet monetized anything. I haven't. I purposely did that. I was like, I need to make sure I find out like the right formula, the right way to sustain these projects before I even, because if I'm going to be making money off of something, I have to know that I can consistently do this. And because of my mental health concerns, I was scared when I started my blog. I was like, am I really going to consistently do this? And look, I'm still here 2 years later. So I think a lot of it is I want to just make sure I can sustain it before money gets involved in other collaborations and other people, because I'm so protective of my professional image. I really truly am. I'm very proud of it and I'd like to keep it the way that it is. And so I never want to bite off more than I can chew, especially when money is involved, whether it be a sponsorship or whatever it may be. But with that being said, the stuff that I am building, I have set it up to where I can monetize it later. I'm on Substack right now. I could be getting paid subscriptions. I have like 60 subscribers, but I'm not really, I don't even know if I've been on there for a year. I mean, do they really want to pay me $5 a month and they haven't really seen my content consistently over time? So for the patience of a saint when it comes to stuff like that. Like if I need to wait one more year before I can know that monetizing things is going to be successful, that's what I'll do. Because again, my ultimate goal was not to monetize things. That was a secondary thing for me personally.
Absolutely. And I love how you said that, because sometimes as an entrepreneur, in order to build your credibility and reputation, you do have to start off with free. And
Yeah.
you know, that literally is how people get to see your work. They get to see how, you do work. And that makes people want to buy in. And when I started my blog, sure enough, I didn't have any collaborations, but now I have all types of affiliate links and things like that with, different people. But it's one of those things where you do sometimes, especially in mental health, you have to start off with free. And
Yeah.
that's hard because we have bills and things like that, but at the same time you have to build your credibility, because there's a million therapists out there, there's a million bloggers out there, there's a million psychologists out there, there's a million psychiatrists out there. What makes you so different? And
Yeah.
that's how you're able to show your difference, is building a reputation and offering those services to people for free. What has been your mindset around turning lived experience into income without feeling like you're commodifying your story?
Well, I guess making sure that my presence represents that I'm not out here sharing my story for like the sensational aspect of it. Because believe me, there's some very sensationalized things that could be sensationalized from my personal story. And in fact, I've actually turned down podcast interviews because I detected that that's exactly why they were having me on. They were going to exploit parts of my story for their own views. Yeah, girl, they let it be publicly known. I'm a hermit. I don't socialize a lot, but I detect things very, very quickly. I observe a lot. And so by turning down opportunities like that, I think that also establishes to the outside world, like, yeah, this girl's not just taking every single opportunity for being seen or to be popular or to be trending or to be viral. She's here for a purpose and for a mission. And you can't be for everybody. I can't. And look, one of these podcasts, they have a big, big following. They really, really do. But for me personally, I'm sorry, buddy, you're not going to be making money or views off of my story unless we're in business about that. Now, if that's what you want to do with my story, be about your business and tell me that up front. Like, yeah, there's this one part of your story. Like, just freaking be honest. I already know that's what you're doing. So just be honest about it. So I think it's all in how I represent myself while I'm telling my story. It matters the opportunities that you seek out. I think the authenticity aspect of it too, because you can kind of tell these creators that are out here for views, to become viral, to get a sponsorship. And again, I'm not saying these are cardinal sins. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I personally just don't choose to operate like that. So if that's what you do, that's awesome. But me, if I had 20 followers and that was it, and they were showing up every day, they were letting me know the content is helpful, I'm fine with that. So I think it's just all impressions matter. It sucks that we have to go by physical things and all that stuff, but the way you present yourself, especially in a social media world where I might not meet half of these people in real life. You know what I'm saying? It's in the way that I've represented myself that makes that distinction between I'm just really here to help people versus I'm here to make money and hopefully I help people.
Right. And, you know, when I originally started both of my podcasts, I started it, with the thought of how would I want to be treated as a guest. And I kid you not, every single one of my guests on both, and Carolyn can tell you, on both of my podcasts, I send them a set of questions. And I them, edit it, delete it, rephrase each question, because that's what it's really about when you're a podcaster and you have guests. It's not about exploring yourself. It's really, bringing in your guests, letting your audience get to know that person. There's a lot of podcasters out there that literally are just chasing views. So they're looking for the biggest, conversation around your personal story, and may very well not even get to your whole mission because they're so busy chasing those views. So
Right.
you have to be careful. And I've turned down a few guests myself just because they didn't align with the podcast, and I've turned down podcasts just because it didn't align with who I was and I didn't like.
Yeah.
And you have to be very careful. So if you're a person that knows you're purpose driven and you know that you have a mission to fulfill, you have to be very careful in who you collaborate with, because not everybody's sending out a set of questions. I haven't actually met a podcaster that sent out a set of questions but myself. So but I wanted to create a safe space for all my guests to literally come on and represent themselves in the way that they want to be viewed. So, like myself, you're managing multiple different platforms, from blogging, podcasting, and you even talked about writing earlier. So, let's talk about how have you been able to structure your workflow without burning out?
Well, I would say a huge thing is that when I first started, I was just kind of creating too much work for myself so now everything kind of like coincides with each other. So I might talk about, let's say, for example, I might talk about loneliness on my podcast, and then maybe I'll have that on my blog. So I guess sticking to one topic for all the platforms, like on a weekly, monthly, daily basis or whatever, definitely cuts out like a lot of extra work. Like repurposing things is a huge one that saves on time. Creating like a series. Now that's a huge one. If I just stick to one topic and then let's say, well, this is going to be my monthly series for darkness and recovery, I'm all set. I don't have to each week come up with like a new topic. I already have it set for the month. So just kind of trying to combine things when I can.
I've done series on Take Corner blogs, but again, I'm a person that research, so I have to take breaks just to make sure what I want to talk about next. I've done my due research, and
Yeah.
I've done several breaks this year, which I'm taking a break right now from Take Corner blogs because I'm doing more research and making sure my next topic that I'm talking about, it aligns with the research. It's not going to be one of those things where you burning yourself out and literally just getting so tired of it that you quit type of things. And that's literally how I've been able to set myself up. And even when it comes down to the podcast, I literally take one day for this podcast about her business, and then the next day I'm doing Healing Through Chaos. And It doesn't take me all day to edit, but at the same time, I know I have to get in that rest. I know I have to get in, that time for myself, which, people call self-care. Everything is intertwined with each other.
Yeah. And also setting it up, like with my podcast, for example, I already knew there's no way I'm releasing weekly episodes. Like that's just not going to happen. So I also just had it set up, well, my podcast is going to be once a month. This particular blog, I'll do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Substack, I'll do Tuesday, Thursday. So I do actually like schedule things because that makes it way easier to organize. Like, and usually at the end of each month, I'm already planning for the next month, but for all the platforms, like I come up with my podcast episode, the theme for my blogs, and then it can always change if I wanted to, but that way when the next month starts, I always try to work like a month ahead or even like a couple weeks ahead. So that way, if I do have a week where I'm just feeling like crap and I can't really do anything, but I do still want to produce content, I still already have like a lot of the work done.
And I love that as well. Now, let's talk about challenges because, a lot of entrepreneurs face different challenges, even podcasters and bloggers and writers. What have been some of the biggest challenges in building a business around mental health advocacy? And how did you navigate through those?
Well, I mentioned the first one a little earlier, and the first challenge was wondering if people were going to maybe not take me as seriously because I do struggle with my mental health. Obviously, on paper, I have the education. I can speak in front of other people. Like I have those things, but I worried that me being open about struggling with depression and anxiety and some of the stereotypes and stigmas that go with that it would affect people wanting to be in business with me. But like I said, that turned out to not be the case at all. And then I think the number two thing is just knowing who to trust. I've had so many situations where the people turned out to not be trustworthy. And it was usually with collaborations and things like that. And it just sucks. Like I want to be able to like let someone follow me and trust that that's like a real person, but I can't. And so if somebody follows me, I look like, when was this account created? Who do they follow? I'm probably likely to take a screenshot of your profile picture and search it through Google. I'm also about to Google your name on Facebook and LinkedIn. And I go through these exhausting efforts for two reasons. One, because I'm a trauma survivor and trusting and feeling safe is like a huge challenge. But two, because I've been burned and screwed over a few times on the business side of things, that's just what I do. And I would encourage listeners and viewers, I mean, you don't have to spend probably as much time as I do, but please look people up. Look them up. If you have even more time, you might do like just a little bit of a history check. Had I done background checks on some of these people, I probably would have never even had a first conversation with them. But I didn't know any better. It was at the beginning. Now that I know, I definitely look into things before I say yes. I look at who is this person? What do they stand for? And look, this is not to say if I look you up and you were in jail before that I'm going to not talk to you. It's not about that. It's more so business wise, are you a trustworthy person? Because you can be a trustworthy person maybe in personal life, but not in business. But I would actually argue that you're probably just untrustworthy. But I would say some people might operate that way. But I think just knowing who's trustworthy is the hardest part because a lot of times these people come at you from a friend standpoint and you might divulge personal stuff to them. And then maybe 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, well, hey, let's collaborate on this thing. And then you don't want to. Well, can I trust that you're not going to use what I told you against me? Or are you going to be out here telling people, yeah, don't work with her. She's a flake just because of your personal experience? So it's just, and again, you just have to get used to people not liking you and just get used to the fact that unfortunately there's just a lot of opportunists and shady people out there.
Absolutely. And your haters, they'll create a fake page to follow you because two people last night. And, when it comes down to my Take Corner Blogs page, if you aren't following certain people that I'm already following, I know you didn't come from our little group chat, and I know you're literally no posts, no followers, no anything. You spammed me. So I got to get rid of you.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
sure enough, I just blocked a former friend and family member a couple of weeks ago. So, it's one of those things where your haters will easily create these fake pages and then try to come across as somebody else. And sure enough, when you
Yes.
go and plug that person's name in, that's not that person's face that they have on their profile.
Mm,
Like, some people are looking to come in, pretend to be somebody else. And it's true enough, it's somebody from your background, and you're giving out all that information yet again. And then you're going, what happened? So you definitely have to set up yourself to where you're not getting hacked. You're not getting, giving out too much information
yeah.
about yourself. So do your research when it even come down to these social media sites. And, I know my people that out there that got those big followings can't research every single person. But
Right.
actually go in, because you can look at your views. If they've been viewing your stuff and things like that and liking and commenting, then that's probably, a valid person for you. But at the same time, if they jumping in your inbox right after you accept that follow request or follow back, that might be your warning sign right there.
Yeah, it makes me want to quit sometimes. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I just blocked over 20 fake accounts this morning. Yeah. But y'all got the right one. Y'all got the right one. You can keep them coming. Keep them coming. I like to laugh because if you're a fake profile, you're lucky if you get 5 minutes to view anything on my page because I am on it all the time. If some of these people actually they snuck around for about a good year, so you got me there. But I'm gonna catch you. Maybe not right away, but I'm gonna get you.
Me, me too. And that's the thing that I have picked up on lately. And, I make sure that I do my due diligence to get rid of you real quick, because I don't have time for stuff like that. And people
No.
out here literally looking to steal your work, pretend
Yeah.
to be you. And, back in my Facebook days, people was creating fake pages with my face on it, acting like it was me. And I'm not going through that again. I,
Mm.
I literally will report you to the feds if I've got to, just to make sure that you don't come back on social media to create a fake page. So
Mhm.
be careful when you playing with me. So, because
Yep.
I scared to report you to somebody.
Same here.
So let's talk about, I need some advice from you right now. For the women who may feel called to share their story but are afraid of judgment, what practical step would you suggest helping them start building their own platform?
Man, that's a good one. You just start. I don't know any better advice than that. You just have to start because I was one of those people. I wanted to start a blog back in like 2019. Okay. What are we in 2026? Right. If I would have just started right then, and look, I don't regret that I didn't start it then, but I'm speaking from personal experience. I don't necessarily think like you wake up one morning and you get struck like by a bolt of lightning and all of a sudden, yeah, content creation, you just jump into it like that. You just have to start. Don't sit around and wait for an opportunity because I did that for a little while too. I was like, okay, let me just post a few videos. Someone will discover me and I'll be on my way. Well, it does kind of work like that, but not always. You just have to start. Pick something. If you're whatever you're passionate about, if you're passionate about pictures of cats, like post pictures of cats. Like do what you love. And I didn't know I was going to advocate for mental health when I first started sharing my story. I had no idea, but that is why I kind of had a plan, but I didn't have a plan. My initial plan, let's just start with telling my story and let's see where it goes from there. And organically, I got more into mental health and mental health recovery and things of that nature. So it might not be the best advice, but all I can tell you is just start.
That is the actual best advice that you can give anybody out there, in any industry and entrepreneurship. Like Nike said, just do it. Do it.
Right.
But, feeling like you're insane, just do it. as a podcaster. If you're sitting around waiting till you get the perfect camera, or if you're sitting around waiting till you get the perfect microphone, or the perfect editing tools, you may very well be waiting years to
Yeah.
because that stuff is expensive. And that's the thing. I got the microphone. I got all the little key things and everything to make sure my audio and stuff like that is perfect. But I don't even use none of that stuff at all. That just didn't fit me. And you have to make sure stuff is charged. You have to make sure that it'll last a long time. So even if you starting with your phone, a
Yeah.
lot of YouTubers that are, have millions of followers right now will literally tell you, I started with my phone. I didn't
Yeah.
start with this $8,000 to $2,000 camera. Now they may be using it now, but that's not how they started. They just literally say, "Hey, I want to be a YouTuber or a content creator one day," and turn on their camera on their phone because
Yeah.
everybody has a phone nowadays, even teens. So just turn on your phone and
Yeah.
do it messy, do it ugly. You don't even need a script sometimes. Just literally just do it as yourself, and eventually you'll learn the lessons along the way, because that's the thing. You're going to learn lessons as an entrepreneur, and it literally is about growth and, building yourself. So if you're a person that's afraid of, making a mistake, or if you're a person that's afraid of failing, then, entrepreneurship going to get real hard real quick for you, because you are a lifelong learner in this process. And even if I had Beyonce sitting here right now, Beyonce will tell you, girl, I started like this. I made some
Yeah.
mistakes. I learned some lessons, and this is how I ended up becoming literally the best-selling singer and entertainer of all time, because I learned and I continued to grow throughout that entire process. And you can look at when Beyonce started in Destiny's Child and look at Beyonce right now. It's a
Yeah.
whole different transformation. And that's literally what you want to be as an entrepreneur.
Be okay with changing things. Like, I'm such an old lady. I'm a creature of habit. I like to do the same thing the same kind of way all the time. But unfortunately, like for content creation, people kind of get sick of that stuff. And if you look at my content, it has actually evolved. I started doing this for a little while and then I transitioned, but all that stuff kind of happens naturally. Honestly, I didn't really plan for it a whole lot. I even get sick of just doing the same old thing sometimes and want to switch it up.
I get bored real easily. So with like my Take on a Blogs page, I started off with just graphics. Then I said, okay, I'm getting tired with that, but I still want to include graphics. And then I, started incorporating videos of me sitting down doing therapy Tuesday and mental health Monday. And I said, well, okay, I'm building credibility. I'm getting in the professionals. They're taking note to what I'm saying. And so I started reaching out, which was my whole reason for creating Take on a Blogs, was to collaborate with other mental health professionals in the field. So when they started reaching out, I started saying, hey, let's collaborate. Are you interested in the collaboration? And that's how I built the mental health series. And now it's one of those things where everybody incorporate AI. And I could talk about AI and mental health and where it should be and where it shouldn't be, but I wanted to show people what they really could do with AI in the mental health field. So I ended up creating my girls, Yasmin, Christy, and Carmen, and my girl Tay, um, to come on and do little different segments. And sure enough, it started attracting people and views and things like that. So it's literally about transformation and growing and getting through things and, learning lessons in the process as well.
Yes.
Because I'm telling you, if you have a vision and stand firm in that vision,
Yep.
they eventually start to grow into what it needs to grow into. Now, we're getting closer to the end of our episode, and I want to talk about your personal journey. What has been the most powerful moment where you realized your work was creating real impact, and how did that influence your business decisions?
I think the biggest one was with my first blog, Darkness to Dialogue. And when I figured out how to do like the Google Analytics and I saw that my blog was being viewed like worldwide, like in Japan, China, all these different countries, I was like, what the heck? Like, I just figured, like my friends will be good fans and supporters and read my blog and maybe just a few other people. But I would have never imagined that it would be like a worldwide, like an international thing. And that's when I was like, I really have something here. And it's bigger than what I ever thought that it could be. And then, of course, whenever I get messages of like, oh my gosh, this topic was so relatable, thank you, or whatever, that always just reinforces that you're on the right track. And again, you don't need to get hundreds and hundreds of messages or validation from people. Just like one or two people is enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's well said, because if you start entrepreneurship for that external validation, you're going to easily end up right in that box that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And you're going to literally end up becoming who they want to see versus who you truly are. And, I'm just grateful for my Take on the Blogs community, because this is how me and Caralyn met, through my Take on the Blogs community. And, it literally started with wanting to support each other, wanting to help each other through the process. And that's, literally what the mission was about. It was about building a community, about support and supporting each other, whether if you're a professional and you want to get your business out there, if you're a person that has gone through it. I wanted that literally safe space where everybody can come to the same room and be in the same area at the same time and gaining that support. So Caralyn, again, I'm totally in alignment with you on that one, because you have to just stick true to the journey and be happy in who you are becoming, and just grow throughout the process, because I'm telling you, entrepreneurship, it ain't for the weak.
No, it's not at all.
And sadly, you guys, we're coming to the end of today's episode, and we always leave with a legacy here on About Her Business. And I give you a couple of seconds to think about this. When it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
I think I want to be remembered for just being like a kind, compassionate person. One comment that I get quite often is that people see like a bright light with me. I get that comment all the time. If I were to be gone tomorrow, I would want someone to say, Caralyn was such a bright light. That would mean the world to me.
And honestly and truly, you're already leaving that legacy behind, because you have such a bright spirit, and you're always kind and always supportive of others. And I'm just truly grateful to have you in my community, because you are already living that legacy. So
Thank you.
now, sadly, you guys, we have come to the end of today's episode. But before we go, we're gonna make sure that we get all of Miss Dreyer's information. So let us know again how we can find both blogs. Let us know where we can find the podcast. Let us know how we can follow you on all your socials.
Okay, so my podcast, Through the Darkness, a mental health recovery podcast, is on Apple, Spotify, and Podbean. Darkness to Dialogue and Darkness and Recovery are both on the Blogger platform. You can find links to that if you just Google Caralyn Dreyer, or go to Instagram as like my main social media hub, where you can find links to all my blogging, my podcast, all that stuff. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Clapper, Blue Sky, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads, Substack, and Medium. So you literally can't go too far without finding me somewhere. And I did that with great intention, so that if you don't want to hear me, you don't have to. But if you do, there's more than one way to do it.
Absolutely. And that's the definition of a true advocate. You're going to be seen everywhere. And you don't care if anybody wants you in the room. You're going to step in.
Yep.
And, before we go, though, I do want to leave you with the final word.
For all you entrepreneurs out there, just stick with it. Stay the course. Don't let those setbacks make you quit. Rest, but don't quit. That is such a true statement when it comes to being an entrepreneur. You need to make sure that you rest for sure, but don't let a bad day, don't let a troll, don't let a bad business deal, don't let a miscollaboration let you quit. Don't quit. Just stick with it, be yourself, stay true to yourself, and you'll be great.
Absolutely. And with that, ladies, today's meeting is now adjourned. Thanks again to serial entrepreneur and mental health advocate, Miss Caralyn Dreyer, for coming on and sharing her personal insights. And you be sure to subscribe to About Her Business wherever you receive your podcast, so you never miss whenever we upload. Also, leave me some comments down in that comment section on which industry you think I should interview next. Until next time, keep your goals tight, that circle tighter, and that bank account growing.